I'm Mahdi Shaheeb Sher. My website is www.shaheeb.com. I think one of my interests in the world at the moment is COVID. I think that COVID is a very serious issue that the world has had to deal with over the past few years. I think COVID is a global influenza pandemic, something that is quite serious in terms of diseases that have occurred in the world over the past few centuries. I think if you look at the diseases that we have had over the past few centuries, maybe from about 1500 onwards, then you can see that COVID does actually rank quite high amongst those diseases. It's probably a third the size of the plague, um, of the European plague, and that's how big COVID is. I mean, that's primarily due to the fatalities involved. Something like 7 million people have died with COVID, and I think that is a high casualty rate. It's also a global disease, and it's a global influenza pandemic. So the fact that it's probably one of the first global diseases of this magnitude is quite serious as well. So I think that COVID does rank quite highly compared to the most deadly and infectious diseases of the world in world history. And I think partly that is down to the fact that COVID is a global disease, unlike maybe other diseases that have occurred in the past. So I think COVID is slightly unusual in that respect. I think that COVID is some kind of a bird flu. It's a flu. It's an influenza type of a disease. I think it was initially spread by some kind of a flu virus, kind of a strain of virus that is linked with flu and influenza. So I think that the nature of COVID is that it is very contagious and it can spread quite rapidly between people and individuals. But I think the global nature of COVID is what's most striking about COVID, that it's a very global disease. It required not just containment of the disease, which involved social distancing, but also wearing face masks and also the rollout of vaccines as well. It was a case of controlling population with its day-to-day movement and control. So we did have things like social distancing for the first time in public and the public environment. There was wide scale use of social distancing, but also the use of face masks throughout the world, which is a spectacle that I don't think has been seen before very regularly. So I think that that was quite interesting as well. And it's also involved an economic global lockdown as well, where global economies have locked down, uh, primarily because of the containment of individuals who had to contain themselves indoors and have become housebound. So I think that there was some kind of economic effect of COVID as well, which involved a global lockdown of countries with their economies, with people having to stay indoors to quarantine themselves and to have some kind of a sanction where they had to quarantine themselves. So there was a large worldwide global economic effect of the disease, which I don't think has occurred before in history as well. So there has been some kind of precedence where COVID has, as a global disease, um, involved a high death toll of 7 million individuals, but has also introduced um, new phenomena and concepts like social distancing, economic lockdown, um, and maybe quarantine of individuals on a global level that has never been seen before. So I think COVID is quite important as a disease in the way it's occurred. And I think it is something that has to be debated by World Health Organizations, by authorities, and by governments as well, especially by governments who think, I believe, are best placed to maybe control COVID, in partnership with World Health Organization. So I think that COVID is still prevalent today. It started in 2020, and it's still here in 2025. So it's been a good 5 years, which is half a decade of the disease being present in the globe. And I think that for that disease to remain active, despite all of the measures and practices that have taken place, is quite concerning. The death toll of 7 million is quite significant as well. It's similar to the type of death toll that you would experience with a small war. So it is quite a fatal disease and quite a deadly disease. But in terms of its origins, I think that it originated in China, in some kind of a southwestern province of China, um, close to the region of India, to its southern kind of border. I think it's the Xinjiang province. I'm not sure what the exact province is called, but I think it is some kind of a southern province where there was a laboratory that had some kind of contaminated virus that leaked into the public. And I think that laboratory was widely reported in the press. It was kind of widely reported in the media and the press. So I think we do have some kind of idea as to where the source of the disease is within China and the laboratory involved in China with this deadly strain of influenza, and which has been called COVID. COVID is a very unusual name for a disease as well. It sounds like a laboratory name, but it also sounds like a US government terminology. My view personally is that America has been somehow involved with China with this outbreak of COVID, maybe with the White House or something. I think that it is of concern that some kind of tension between China and US could be some kind of a reason or purpose behind this outbreak of the disease. I think that the name of COVID and the global nature of COVID is very concerning for a disease, and it has had to be dealt with quite drastically with the rollout of vaccines from Pfizer and AstraZeneca. And I think that these vaccines have saved something like 4 million lives. So they have been quite effective in saving lives, which is very positive. And these vaccines are still quite effective. So there is some potential for perhaps eradicating the disease with these vaccines, perhaps by developing them to a higher, more sophisticated level, that they can combat the disease more widely, and especially if there is more of a wide distribution of the vaccine, then that could be a good way of managing the disease. I think the rollout of a vaccine program is probably one of the most effective ways of managing disease. But I think that the reason we've had COVID is very significant. The world can't deal with the pressures of a large scale disease like COVID because it does exact a high death toll. The number of fatalities of 7 million people is a huge loss of life. And I think the world shouldn't have to deal with that type of loss of life. It is similar to the nature of having a small war. So I think that is quite disturbing to witness such a large loss of life. And there should be more priority and emphasis by World Health Organizations, by authorities, and by governments to perhaps gain control of the disease and to eradicate it permanently so it doesn't perhaps continue into the future. And I think that that should be a huge priority for governments and for presidents and world leaders to perhaps address these concerns that maybe people have with COVID disease. It is a very unusual disease. It's a global disease that's cost 7 million lives. It's required unprecedented procedures and steps of social distancing, wearing face masks, and global economic lockdown. And it's probably the third of the size of the plague. And this can be checked with public information. I think there is a lot of information about COVID which does corroborate the fact that it is some kind of a plague in size, but maybe 30% the size of the plague. So it's cost 7 million lives rather than perhaps 25 million lives or 50 million lives that maybe the plague was involved with. So I think that COVID is something that is quite serious. Is the world has witnessed COVID as a disease in the modern age. This hasn't been seen, I think, since the plague around about 1500. I think around about the medieval period. So I think that for the world to have this level and this large scale disease in the modern period, in modern society at this time is very concerning. There's been other diseases like monkeypox as well, and there is some concern that there could be some kind of a period of time where there is more prevalence of disease within the world and within the public environment that could be more um, contagious for people, that could cause health concerns for people and some kind of a health alarm in the world needs to be addressed appropriately by health authorities, health organizations, and by world leaders and by governments around the world to properly address these health issues at an early stage rather than a later fatal stage. So I think that's one of the issues around COVID, and hopefully we can eradicate COVID as a global influenza disease. Thank you very much. Thank you.